This is Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley, a podcast that explores the feelings, emotions, and experiences of what it means to be human in this world. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references if you need support.
And before you dive in, please like, subscribe, comment, share with anyone you think might also connect with today's session. Our goal is to reach as many people as possible, and we are endlessly grateful for your continued support. So, let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley. I'm Ashley.
I'm Sara Cate.
We're going to talk about what was mentioned in the last episode about what's mine and what's yours. Differentiation between the two. I think this will be, well, I'm not biased or anything, but I really love our conversations, and I think that this is going to be a good one because I think that this is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting too. You know, if you identify as an empath, like myself, yes, differentiation has been life-changing for me in my little body over here. Because
very little hands. Very powerful little hands.
Child size. I can wear children's gloves. I actually got a pair of children's Santa gloves for Christmas this year.
Teeny they are sometimes. And then she's talking, and I'm like, wow.
I know. It doesn't come
because you don't expect it when she is getting on the trigger point and you're back. I feel like she hovers her index finger and I'm a puddle. So like, it is wild how powerful she is. Anyway.
I'm not sure where to go from there.
My hands, differentiation. My hands, on the other hand, are like crab claws. So, what should we know about differentiation, Ashley?
Well, that it's very helpful.
Yes. That this podcast might not be. Differentiation is.
But okay, let's like just maybe talk about. We mentioned this also in the last episode of how if you're new to working with your body,
yeah,
this might be a concept that seems a little harder to grasp maybe, or like it might be harder to identify with some of these things that we're talking about, and that's okay, right? We are here on purpose to present you this information and to support you in your process as you explore. And so when we talk about like what is mine and what is theirs, we're talking about the difference between, I mean, simply put, like what's my shit and what's Sara Cate's shit that she might be projecting onto me, or what's my shit that I'm projecting onto her. And then to go a little bit deeper into that, energetically, we can feel like we talked about a major life transition in the last episode that I was going through. And so when I would share news about my journey, there were times where the fear of that somebody else held about, who knows what it could be. It could be that they have a fear of like moving across the country, or that they want to get out of whatever situation they're in, and they're afraid of like the change, or they're afraid of the unknown, right? And there's a difference between me feeling them put that on me and me accepting that as my own, or being able to understand that that is theirs and I don't actually have to take that on.
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of, how the heck do you figure this out? How the heck? You know,
that's the most language appropriate we have ever been on the show. How the heck do you do it?
I know. I just said shit 17 times. So
it's called balance.
Yes. Thought I should tone it down. But to go back to initiating a conversation with your body is where it all starts. Because maybe this conversation for you is, okay, what does that even mean that I'm carrying my stuff and somebody else is carrying their stuff, right? Like maybe this is the first time you've even like contemplated that of like what that actually means. And then maybe from there it goes to like, okay, if I have this fear, I have this feeling, where's somewhere that I've maybe like projected that out in my life, right? Like, because we've all done it. We've all done this to somebody.
Well, you're kind of, I feel like that's a really good place to start is with the word projection, because I think it's an easy, because that is as a vocabulary word we probably have all used. I feel like you're projecting that onto me right now, or I know that I projected my worry about that thing onto that, right? So like, I think a lot of us have had experience with projection more than we've ever had experience with like being able to see it and stop it. Or even recognize like that I'm doing it. Oftentimes we see it, you know, in hindsight, or someone tells us like, I feel like, you know, that's your story. You might have heard that phrase too. So it's kind of working with this concept of like feeling like somebody has put something on you that's not, you know, you don't feel like you need or want, and vice versa. I have absolutely chucked my fears at people in my life. Bless them for staying. And I have been projected on a lot. So it really, this doesn't make us, you know, malicious or bad people. We are not trying to hurt somebody when we do this. You know, there's a big difference of like, I'm manipulating you by hurting you, by like making you feel a certain way, or like gaslighting someone, compared to like, I am feeling something really intense, and so I'm going to put it on the situation that's in front of me. It's not a malicious thing.
Yeah. And I think it's like really interesting when you think about that, of like what she just said, of like, I'm feeling something so intense. It's like kind of wild how well our body will protect us.
Yes.
To like, it immediately goes to like, it's in like fight mode, and we got to like throw this out. And so we can protect us at all costs.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that even that in of itself, even thinking about it like that, because it's not necessarily, you know, always beneficial, right, to do that. Like we don't actually. However, I think thinking of it that way gives us, it humanizes it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. Like it gives us a different lens of compassion to look at ourselves, because it's truly just trying to keep us safe. And we can work with that
management strategy.
Yeah. Like we can work with that. Like there's a reason why your body wants to do that. And we can work with it when we befriend it versus when we shame it.
Right. And I think if we were to break down kind of the concept of differentiation, what would be an easy way to do that? Okay. So Ashley told me that, like we covered in the last episode, she told me that she was moving to Atlanta, and what I felt in my body was grounded, anchored. It was like a knowing. It was like a yes, that is where she is going, right? There was like there was a truth to it. And I talked about how I felt truth in my body. It's a downward movement. It's a settling, like it's almost like a widening in the lower part of my body. Like it gets very foundational for me. I can feel myself connecting more, kind of like more stabilization, kind of, in a way. And you could use the word grounded, right? But I knew that was separate from Ashley's, because Ashley had known this. Like she had felt this in her body already. When I can tell the difference of sensation in my body, then I can respond to her, right? And I can come to her and say, hey, I'm really feeling grounded. What are you feeling, right? Or I can say, what are you feeling, knowing that I feel grounded in my body. And whatever she tells me gets to be other information, but I'm still processing it and feeling it in my own body. And so I know, like, and while in that instance, they mirrored each other, what she felt in her body too was very grounded in her decision. There can be times where we don't have that, right? So if I were to, let's say, tell somebody that I'm going to go on some adventure. Let's say I'm going to go on a trip. And, oh, perfect example. Oh, if my father listens to this one, he probably won't love it. I decided I was going to live in a van in New Zealand with my best friend about 9 years ago. No.
Oh my God, Sara Cate. I literally was like, you're going again?
No.
Jeez.
I mean, I would.
They
They won't give me a visa now. She's too old. They only give that to people 30 and under. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, 30, almost 39-year-olds don't get that same. Don't get that. Anyways, so I told my dad I was going to New Zealand and to live in a van, which as a father of a only one child, a daughter, that's pretty terrifying thought. She's on a different part in a completely different hemisphere. Like she is on the other side of the world, and I was going to be, not have service for big periods of time. And his fears came up, right? And it was a bad idea and I shouldn't do it. And like, of course, so then I started questioning, should I do it? Is this the right thing for me? Am I making a mistake? Am I putting myself in a vulnerable position, right? And because we're a part of a family, especially, the unit that we're in, like I'm going to take on, and I learned as a child to take on my parents' fears. And and especially when we're little, they're our teachers, our caregivers are our teachers. And so we see them having a reaction, then we have a reaction. It's like, oh, well, you're telling me I should be afraid, so I'm afraid, right? Inversely, it can be used against us, right? If we don't have safe caregivers where they can say, you can be feeling afraid in your body, and your caregiver can say, there's nothing to be afraid about, knock it off. You can be crying and sad or mad, and they can say, I'll give you something to cry about, knock it off. And they shut it down. And so if we don't learn, which we don't, a lot of us in our childhood, to differentiate and say, no, I am mad because it wasn't safe. We can't as a little kid be like, fuck you, dad, I'm mad. We have to just say, okay, I won't be mad then. Or, okay, I'm terrified about this thing, when really maybe we're not feeling terrified about the thing. But we take on what we're told and what we're taught, right? And also we learn to keep ourselves safe in those environments. And so as adults, we have to do this differentiation work, which was like, hold on, I don't feel scared about going to New Zealand and living in a van. I can't find that worry in my body. I can feel him being worried, but I don't actually feel worried in my body, which is like upset stomach, like fluttery heart. I'm not feeling those sensations, but I'm watching this happen. And it was a really kind of a moment of reckoning for me, of individuation and differentiation from my dad, who loves me and cares for me and wants me to be safe. But it was good for me to be like, oh, like, no, we're having two different experiences about this. And I get to trust mine. Right. And so when I was kind of used those two examples of like me being in feeling something different than what was being shown to me, and also then feeling still differentiated between Ashley and I, but like I was feeling the same thing she was feeling. So as an empath, you can be mirroring each other emotionally in your own bodies and in your sensation. And also you can start to learn as an adult to recognize, like, I'm watching all of this fear come up, right? Like, here's all of the reasons why I shouldn't do this. And those are scary reasons. I should be afraid. And yet my body is not telling me that I'm afraid. And that's another piece of like coming back to ourselves as adults to be like, what do I actually feel? And is it this?
Yeah. I think it was really important that you brought up the having two different experiences with the same happening that's going on. I think that's a concept that maybe lots of concepts we don't really get taught about. But
a lot.
But I think that this is one that we could be experiencing a similar thing, right? Like this situation, her going to New Zealand she's the one going, right? But like the topic at hand for her and her dad was a very different life experience, right? And the fact that can be true, that two things can be true. Her dad can be having one experience and that she could be having another experience in relation to the same topic, but they are completely separate and different is okay and true. And that is life, because nobody is having the same experience as you. And I think, like when we think about when we project or when we feel like somebody is projecting onto us, it's like that loss of like, nope, we're having two different experiences and we get to stay in our own experience. And it is our responsibility to take care of the experience that we are having.
Yes, Ashley, say that again. It's so good though.
I really
It
wish,
is our.
if you're listening to this, I really wish you could have seen Sara Cate right now.
I was very excited about it because it's so true. Like, because we throw this word, I'm an empath, around. Well, if you are an empath, then you do have a responsibility to take care of yourself in this. We can't just say I'm an empath, so everything you do affects me, right? Like not fair.
Yeah.
And it's not that there's not blame in that.
No.
Or like disrespect, but it's more like, oh my gosh, please protect yourself.
Yeah.
Please be, what was it? I'm responsible for my own
experience.
For
taking care of your experience. Yeah.
Taking care of your experience.
An example.
So I have goosebumps still. Responsible for taking care of my experience. That's agency. That's power.
Yeah.
That is
power.
power.
Look what we came back to. Okay. So like when I started really working with the energetics of pelvic health and that I mean, even prior to this, I knew that something was going on. I would like be standing in the grocery store checkout and all of a sudden feel this like wash of emotion, like pour over me. And I'm like, oh my God, why do I feel like I'm going to cry? What's happening? Looking around frantically, like there's something going on.
Something, give me a sign.
Which like wasn't, that's like an extreme example, but like that would happen to me often if I was in close vicinity with other people. And it's really, or I would get like a really big heaviness sometimes of like, oh my God, like this makes me want to curl up in a ball and something's going on. Anyways, when I started working more with energetics of helping people with pelvic health and really diving into like beyond just the physical, I would go home at the end of the day and like not be able to function. Like I would be so exhausted to the point where it was like interfering with my life. Like I couldn't make plans after work. I was getting resentful to people for wanting to make plans with me. Cause I'd be like, how dare you? Like, don't you know what I go through? Like, don't you know what I held today? Like all of that stuff. And
I still kind of feel that.
Well,
looks like I have some more therapeutic work to do.
But it's not perfect, right? But that is not anybody else's responsibility. I chose my profession. I choose to do this work. That is me. That is not my friends. That is not my partner. That is not my family choosing this. And so for me to put the responsibility onto them that they should be the ones taking care of me. Now, when I say that, this is not to say that we don't deserve support, right? Like this isn't to say that they're different. Yes, but very, very different than me putting my resentment on them thinking that they want to hang out with me. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how lovely, that my friends like me. So here's what happened though. I had to have like a come to Jesus talk with myself, because if I would have traveled down that road, there is zero chance that I would still be doing the work that I'm doing. There's no way you can sustain it. 0% chance that you're going to be able to sustain that and live the life that you want. You're just going to be miserable. You're going to push everybody out of your life. It's not, like we're going to end up in a hole where it's really hard to move our way through. Right. So I decided that I had to do something about that, because I didn't want to go home exhausted at the end of the day. I didn't want to push people out of my life. I didn't want to tell people that they were annoying for asking me to hang out or have resentment towards them. And so I had to figure out how to protect my energy, because I can still exist in this world where I feel very deeply and I don't have to carry other people's experience with me. It doesn't mean that when I sit with somebody and they're telling me something really, really hard about what happened to them or the violations on their body, it does not mean that that doesn't affect me. It doesn't mean that I've turned cold and I just don't care. But there's a difference in holding space and being witness to somebody and taking that on. Because if I take that on, guess what? I'm not going to help them. I'm not going to be of service to them.
Nope.
And that's not their responsibility to then hold back, right? They're here to get help, right? Like it's not their responsibility to hold back. It's not their responsibility to do anything other than just be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my responsibility to be who I am. And to be who I am means I have to take care of what kind of energy I'm holding on to,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I mean, so much. And like why I think I got so excited about you making that point was because that self-responsibility becomes self-compassion.
Yes.
And
And like the truest form of self-care.
oh my God, like it's like almost revolutionary.
Yeah.
Because it is not you saying, I just was talking with one of my dearest friends this morning, and she was like, I'm just noticing a distance in my relationship to this other friend. And I was like, what if it isn't distance? What if this is just boundaries and you two actually get to love each other well now because you're separate, because you are recognizing that her stuff is her stuff and your stuff is your stuff, and you can care for the other because you're not enmeshed, right? You're not like, which is what the danger of being an empath is, like what Ashley was saying, where you burn out because you intertwine yourself with their emotional experience. Well, if you're in a helping or service profession and you intertwine yourself with everybody's experience, it will literally deplete you of every single resource you have, because you also are human on the outside of it. I mean, I had a client look at me the other day and she goes, I don't know. Like, she's like, do you really have a life outside of doing this? And I'm like, I've had to learn how to. I've had to learn how to be here and Ashley used a wonderful word, sit witness to what is happening for my clients, and then still also actually apply that to my personal life and sit witness for my friends and my family and what they're going for, and not intervene and not enmesh myself. Because if I enmeshed myself, I wouldn't be able to care for them in what they were doing with. The distance helps me learn how to care for them. I can see how I need to intervene. I can see what I can ask. What kind of support do you need right now? Rather than just being overwhelmed with it too, right? Do you need me to ask questions? Do you need me to just sit here? When I am outside of the fire, I can figure out how to kind of contain it.
Yeah.
But like, if I'm in it, I fucking can't. And so that, like, sitting witness to and like learning what is yours, right? And I just did this exercise with a client who has always been in codependent relationships because of her upbringing. And I had her do this exercise, and I kind of encourage you to try this because it is hard. You will need a second person to do it. But ultimately what I had her do is I said, if it feels comfortable to you, place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, which is like in yoga, it's a pretty consistent practice with like coming towards yourself, like really being in contact with two important places in your energetic system, right? And so she was holding her hand on her heart and holding her hand on her belly. And I had one of my dog cedar, one of her like soft plush toys. And I was like, with the best of your ability, I'm asking you not to catch this toy, right? And so she's standing there and I toss the toy towards her and she like moves her hands, and then she like stops herself and she like puts her hands back on herself. And I was like, great. I was like, let's try that again. So I tossed it to her and she didn't catch it. She just let it drop at her feet, right? And I said, let's try it one more time. And I want you to just really feel your hands on your body right now and watch the impulse to catch the toy, right? And she did, and she didn't even flinch, didn't even move, right? And I was like, if you are with yourself, you can't catch my shit. And this is what we have to learn about in relationship. Now you can see it sitting there and I can toss it at you. I can project it, quote unquote, at you, but you have the ability to not catch it, to not pick it up, but to acknowledge it and be like, there's the toy. I see it. I see that you just threw that. What's going on? What are you feeling right now? But if you are with yourself, right, then you don't have to take on what somebody else is trying to give to you. And it is hard because we were literally taught to catch and like use whatever someone throws at us as a way to assess who we are. That is like our way sometimes of growing up through childhood. Again, if you had to orient to the narcissistic parent, if you had to orient to the parent who had substance use issues, right? Like if you had to always figure out who to be based on the environment you were in, you're going to want to catch those projections.
Yeah.
Because they're going to tell you how to be and how to be safe. And what we're having to do and learn, to Ashley's point, is how to become responsible first. And like, this is a hard practice and a hard skill to learn as adults because of all of the programming that we have had that encourages us to do otherwise.
I used to think too sometimes, and there are still certain relationships where I like put on my armor is what I say. Like it's either like Tin Man armor or like Michelin Man guy, you know?
The visual of
you know what I'm talking about?
Michelin Man costume. Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, when the Michelin Man gets so big and he's marshmallow. That needs to be your Halloween costume. Yeah. It would be great. You can make your hair big because spray paint it white.
Listen.
Anyway,
catch me in October. Catch me in October. But because I orient really well to like visualizations and physical things. And so that gave me, if I was going to go into a day of clients where I knew there was going to be some heavier stuff coming up, I would literally I always prepared my room, and got it ready to receive the clients of the day. And I always do a welcome and then a blessing as they leave and then a welcome for the next person. And so I was doing these things, right? But sometimes, bless you.
Hey. I was trying to be quiet.
But I would sometimes need extra protection because I could feel myself. I think when you feel things, you want to you want to almost be intertwined because you think that that's going to be what the thing that like you can pick them up and wrap it in the whole, like all of those, like just you think that it's going to be super helpful. And in reality, it's not. So I would like literally picture myself putting on this armor because then I could see like there and it like kind of like the ball, right? This is just another way to do it. It would be like, I could see those energetic particles coming at me, but they would literally just bounce right off of me. Like they didn't even get to penetrate the first layer of my skin. And sometimes if I know I'm going to be in a difficult situation or a situation where I'm going to have a harder time because I'm a little bit too close to it, or it's just it's maybe a more challenging relationship, or maybe my boundaries aren't typically respected in this relationship, I will still do that. So that I know in my head, I have this extra barrier because I don't want it. Because when I take on other people's stuff, I don't love who I am. I don't love the way that I get overwhelmed.
Why do you think that is? I don't love who I am when I take on other people's stuff.
Because I'm not my best self. I can't be present in the moment. I can't be present, not only in the moment, I can't be present for myself. I can't take care of myself the way I know I want to take care of myself. I can't show up in my relationships that I really cherish. I can't show up in them the way that I want to, and the way that I know that I deserve to show up, right?
Because you want to bring, Ashley is such a heart-led person. Like you want to bring your heart to that. But if you're taking on their stuff, her heart can't get through.
Right. That's a really good way to put it.
Well, I think about your heart.
Oh,
because this is such a perfect example of like knowing how to protect yourself. Like you can use that. Even if I say to clients sometimes when they're working with having their boundaries, I'm like, place both hands on your heart while you're having that conversation with them. Can you feel your own body? And where your body stops, so too does their stuff. And you can like imagine it being right there, but like you are with you, or imagine everything that you have is protected behind your hands. It doesn't have to leave you to go towards them. And or imagine the armor, right? Imagine kind of like, okay, I'm going into this hard meeting, or I'm going into this hard conversation with a friend or a partner or whatever it is, and like you put the armor on and you're like, at least I have a layer of protection. So being able to start to practice these ways of like being with yourself, and that to some degree, when we're talking about projection, when we're talking about differentiation, it starts through that self-exploration with even that question that I kind of brought up with my dad of like, does this feel like mine?
Mm-hmm.
If someone throws an emotion at you, like Ashley is moving to Atlanta, right? And it changed from where she was originally going to move to where she's moving now. And if someone were have said to her, well, I thought you were going to San Diego.
Oh, well, that's happened.
And it happened, right? That like furrowing of the brow and like
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to San Diego. Why'd you change your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Kind of that like push. Ashley then can be like, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than them saying like, oh, wow, why? What made you switch? Or like, incredible. Tell me about where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a different feeling for Ashley than why?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whose is that? Is that Ashley's? Because Ashley's made the decision. She knows she's going, but that kind of energy coming at her is not hers. And so that you can ask yourself that, does this, whatever's happening right here and the way this person is speaking to me, and I'm feeling this like activation in my body of like, maybe your shoulders are going up and your arms are kind of like going into like defense mode of like fight, kind of like, hold on, why are you challenging me? Right? Do you feel your system do that? Then you can say, does this feel like mine? No. And then when you realize, I don't know, that's your stuff, right? Like, then you can just be like, oh, because I want to. There doesn't need to be a fight. There doesn't need to be a defense. There doesn't need to be a justification.
Yep.
If you find yourself justifying,
I don't know.
justifying.
I was like, I don't know. Sounds good to me.
If you find yourself justifying your choices a lot, notice that.
Yes.
That is a big sign that, that something is being projected onto you through somebody else's lens that you're trying to like poke holes in to feel okay about your choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tangible practices, which I loved.
Yeah.
Start with differentiation. Put on your armor. I love Ashley's, the visualization of that, right? And let it stop. Let it hit the armor and fall off. Or place your hands on your heart and just have the conversation and be like, I can feel my own body right here. And so whatever they're throwing at me, I don't have to pick up. I don't have to grab. And it is hard to do, especially when we've historically been in those relationships that have asked us to do that. So keep in mind, like compassion. But once we can do that, once we become responsible for our own experience and feelings, then we can be like, hey, I'm going to take care of my dear heart. Until next time. Share, like, subscribe. Leave us a review. We would really love it. It helps us out. Yeah. And we're so appreciative of your support. But if you could leave us a review, that would be lovely. We love funny things too. Leave us a joke. Yes. Give us one of those. A little dad joke. Wait, dang, I told a dad joke the other day. Do you remember it? I think I'm really funny, but sometimes people don't. I think you're hilarious. Thank you. They just don't have a sense of humor. Everybody needs to hear that. They don't have a sense of humor. And then my sister sent me this meme. It was about a Gemini, and it was like the Gemini girl was like all dramatically laying back, and there's two guys there like, what the heck happened to her? And then one person said, somebody didn't laugh at her joke. Yeah, that would hurt your feelings. Drama. It would. Okay. Great. Until next time. Bye.